Okay, so we're holding Perek Revi'i in Tehilim. If you have a Tehilim, it would be easier to follow. Chapter 4. As we said earlier, what David here is composing is Beruach HaKodesh. He's not just making up words. He's being inspired. He definitely has the divine presence with him, and therefore he's divinely inspired. So the words are powerful, the words contain many messages, the words are prophetic, the words are real, and there's a lot to learn from him. The rabbis learn a lot of lessons, valuable lessons from just about every pasuk. There are midrashim that expound a little bit more on what is being said here, and if one would really understand a little deeper what he's saying, he would be inspired too. So even though we know somewhat the value of saying Tehilim, very powerful prayer indeed, nevertheless, if we understand that, it makes so much of a difference. And as I'm preparing the shiur, as I'm reviewing it with you and learning it, it adds a totally different dimension for myself too. You know, whoever takes the time to learn Tehilim, you know, everyone is busy learning Gemarot, Chumash, Halacha, which is very important because it's very relevant on a daily basis. Tehilim, why would somebody learn Tehilim? Well, once you learn it, you'll see why it paid off to learn it. These are incredible words. We would never know how special they are because of what it imparts. The many important lessons, the proper outlook towards life, the proper outlook towards all kinds of challenges that we face. And this is the emet. This is not just his opinion. You know, there are opinions sometimes in other areas of life. There are opinions in various sciences. This is not an opinion. This is the word of Hashem in a sense, as expressed by David HaMelech. In his style, nonetheless, it is said Beruach HaKodesh. When one learns Sefer Tehilim, when one even says it on a regular basis, ultimately I can easily see how it will strengthen his bitachon in Hashem, not only his emunah, not only his faith, but his reliance, his trust in Hashem. Because much of what David HaMelech talks about is about having proper trust, not having any doubts about Hashem's plans, not trying, you know, sometimes we don't understand his ways. And a lot of what he says, and he says it more than once, is pretty much trust in Hashem. Everything is good, even though it may not appear to be so. And ultimately, David HaMelech impresses upon us the importance of prayer, because that's what he does here. He's not only telling us, by the way, I have some important information for you. This is not just information. I'm doing this, or I'm saying this, composing this as a song, as a prayer. Words of praise, words of thanks, and prayer. Prayer, and that is what, of course, he is not only doing for himself. He wrote this so every one of us should use it in the future as well, to pray to Hashem, and not just to pray when Chaz v'Shalom, God forbid, one is be'et sarah, one is in trouble, one is in need, but even before so, that these should inspire us to get closer to Hashem. So there's a tremendous emphasis on the power of prayer. People underestimate that power. And Tehilim is all about prayer. So in chapter 4, Perek Revi'i, David HaMelech begins with the words Lamnatzeh b'neginot mizmor leDavid. And that's the first time we come across the word Lamnatzeh, even though it will appear throughout Tehilim. What is Lamnatzeh? Did you ever think about that? Lamnatzeh in Lashon HaKodesh is to the conductor. You know, when you have an orchestra, you have musicians, you have a conductor that conducts the orchestra, that arranges the music, puts it all together, which instruments are going to be used for this particular song. So David HaMelech is calling out to the Menatzeach. I'm calling the Menatzeach, Lamnatzeach. I'm calling out to the Menatzeach, the conductor. Beneginot, the one who is involved, or the one who's in charge of the various musical instruments. That's one way of understanding what neginot means, because we know the neginot comes from the root negina. Negina means a song, a tune. So he's asking the Menatzeach over the neginot, over the musical instruments, to listen to this mizmor of David and apply a tune. to these words. Put together a nice song, put together a befitting tune to these words. That's the simple understanding of what he's saying. It's a little hard to understand because you will find in Tehilim many descriptions, quite a few descriptions of different instruments that were used for music. Plus, you will find also different types of songs. And that is what most commentators even say. They're not really familiar, or they don't really know what the real difference between them. And as we see them, I'll explain them as best as possible. It appears to be that there are some happier tunes, maybe some more serious, some sad, and therefore there are different names applied to them. The best way perhaps to understand how this works is if you're familiar with the Arab or Sephardic type of tune called maqam. Maqam. And I think in Iran you also have this. You have this, yeah. Because there are Iranian maqamot as well. Turkish maqamot. And it's hard for me to even find a good translation in English of the word maqam. But it's a certain tune. That's the easiest word to use. It's a certain tune that depends, of course, on the octave, on the key.
Octave.
Yeah, it depends on how you begin and how you end. And it's a whole set. It's basically a whole set. You're not going all over the place. You're sticking to a certain structure. You're sticking to a certain level, certain tone. And that's what maqam is. Briefly, that's what it involves. And you can tell that certain maqamot are happier. It's obvious. And certain ones are sad. Certain ones are more serious. And that is why they're used for different occasions. If you have a Brit Milah, if you have a wedding, a Hashabat Khatan, right? So you have Ajam, right? Yeah, or you have Nahwand, or you have at other times Siga, or you have Rast, or you have Nawa, Zangiran, right? Hijaz. Most people have not heard about these things unless you're really Sephardic and you're into music.
No, Hijaz is Iranian too.
Sure.
No haze.
Yeah. And of course you have the famous Bayat. How could you forget? And Saba. How could you forget about those? But anyway, so those who are professional musicians, they know about these things because either they're playing the qanun or the oud, right? Mm-hmm. It basically works according to these tunes or these musical combinations of sorts to produce a certain type of song, a certain type of tune, happy or sad and so forth. So we're not really sure if he's referring to that, if he's telling him to choose that, right? It could also be that when he says beneginot, that he's telling him, listen, I want something that involves neginot, and that tells the menatzeach, put together the violin and the harp, as opposed to put together some other instruments. Either way, he's telling the composer to take these words and apply a nice tune to it, a befitting tune to them. And who would sing it? The meshorerim. There were others who sang. Usually the ones who played, most likely were not the ones that sang. I don't think so. There's a question about that too. You know, you have those who play, who usually are not the ones who sing. It's two separate jobs. You have the meshorerim, and you have the ones who play the instrument. So you will see this throughout the Tehilim that David HaMelech pretty much calls out to the menatzeach or prepares a particular song in a particular style. And that style involves different kelim, different musical instruments. Okay. So what's the Mizmor all about? Mizmor, Perek Revi'i, begins as follows. Bekor'i aneni. Hashem, when I call out to you, please answer me. Well, that sounds familiar. He said that before, and I'm sure he will say that again. But if you follow the words carefully, you will see that he's not just asking to be heard. The rabbis explain that when we had a Bet HaMikdash, the prayer was incredible. Prayer was much more effective. Hashem heard our prayers. And David HaMelech is aware of that. Even though the Bet HaMikdash is not built, there's a Mishkan. In a similar way, there's a place where Hashem's presence is more felt, and therefore the prayers are more effective, more powerful there. And rabbis tell us that a prayer in a Bet HaKnesset, in a shul, is always going to be more effective than praying in your own home, in your living room. So, what's the choice even? Go and pray in the shul, pray with a minyan. A group of 10 people or more, your chances of being heard are better. But the David HaMelech says, what can we do? Sometimes we're not in a Bet HaKnesset. Sometimes there's no Bet Mikdash. So therefore, listen to me, even if I'm not in the most ideal place. What can I do? I may be in the battlefield. So Bekor'i, whenever I call out to you, wherever, aneni. And that's true. In other words, he's not just asking, it's actually true that you don't have to worry about it, even if you're in the South Pole or on top of the Mount Everest, which I don't think is such a great idea to go to because, I mean, it's dangerous and it's cold, and why pray over there? You better pray before you get to the top so that you don't fall down. But wherever you may be, Hashem will listen. He does. So that's the point over here. Now, if a person is not in the Bet HaKnesset because it's not the same, if he wants his prayer to be more effective, we already mentioned that it's important that he have more kavanah. He should be more focused. He should be very sincere in his words, because then he has a better chance that his prayer will be accepted. However, if you look at the whole pasuk, at the way he expresses himself, he's begging, he's imploring God. And the reason why he's doing that, he's saying, it's because a prayer is not just about putting together words and making a request. A prayer is acknowledging that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is supreme, that he's the only one that can answer my prayer. I therefore only turn to him and to no one else, in a sense. And I beg. Why beg? Why should you beg? Why not just ask? David HaMelech in this pasuk is telling us that the best prayer, believe it or not, is not necessarily the words you use and the words you choose, the fanciest classical language, but speak to Hashem like you speak to your friend, like a child begging his dad, with a certain degree of trust and confidence. And that is what the tzaddikim would do. Sometimes they would go out to the ya'ar, to the forest, and by themselves in Yiddish. This is in Eastern Europe, the tzaddikim of Eastern Europe, and North Africa in Arabic. Wherever you were, in the language that you used, that you felt comfortable, you would ask Hashem, by the way, I'm having trouble with my neighbor, or I'm having trouble with this individual, or I'm having a problem with this issue, as though you would be speaking to a friend. But realizing that this is not just a friend, of course. It's more of a father-son relationship. And what does the son do? He begs his father. Why should he beg? Because maybe he doesn't deserve it. Right? Maybe it's something that he has to live with for the time. So we obviously try to beg and figure that if we implore our Father, He will answer, because He deals with us like a father deals with his son. So this is the most beautiful way to pray to Hashem. Yes, we do have Shachrit Mincha Narvit. We have a prayer book. We have Musaf, and we have Rosh Chodesh, and we have Yalev Yavo. We have a lot of beautiful tefillot. And they, Anshe Knesset did us a tremendous favor that they put the words together, because we would never know what to say. True. All of that is very true, that those words are also said Beruach HaKodesh. The words of the prayer book are very powerful. The tefillah of Baruch She'amar, we have a tradition, came down in Hashemayim, a piece of paper fell down, they saw. And they opened it up. Tefillah, Baruch She'amar. There's some very powerful prayers. Tefillah, the way it was composed, is Ruach HaKodesh too. Nonetheless, even so, the prayer that one on his own composes from his own heart, his own words, sincerely to Hashem, like a son to a father, that is still Hatfilah HaRetzuya Bioter, the most effective or acceptable prayer. It's your own words. Right? Imagine, well, I don't know if that's a good comparison. A wife makes her husband a cake following a recipe that she got from the library. Oh, it's a good recipe. Versus one that she really tried with her own creativity and imagination to put together. Perhaps this might be more impressive, that she works so hard on it to really come up with something nice and something good. When you do something on your own, it's always more impressive. So that tefillah is what David HaMelech is talking about. Bekor'i, I'm calling out with my own words. Therefore, Hashem, listen to me. Then he says, who should you listen to? I'm talking to Elokei Tzidki, the God of my righteousness. Tzidki the word tzedek means righteousness. It also means justice. But here, in this context, he's talking about, I guess, both. You can say both, righteousness and justice. Because what David HaMelech is calling out to, Elokei Tzidki, the God of my righteousness, the God that knows the truth, that he knows me for what I'm worth. And the God of justice, too, of my justice. David HaMelech says, I don't want chas v'shalom for my own righteousness, but much more for your own justice. Shelo yitchalel shem shamayim. God forbid that the name of Hashem should not lose any respect. They should never say anybody who had any doubts about me, Zu Torah v'zu schara. This is what is coming to a righteous man? He's such a good man, and look what's happening to him. He's being punished like he would be an evildoer. David HaMelech is concerned, and the rabbis were concerned. You see this concern in the words of Chazal, that there's always chas v'shalom, this possibility that people may say, look at this individual. He's observant, he's righteous, he's orthodox. Look how much he's suffering. This is the Torah. This is the reward for keeping the Torah. That's what some people may come away from, and that's the impression they may have. So David HaMelech says, no, please. Elokei Tzidki. In other words, after all, you know my righteousness from the past. You've helped me in the past. Plus, I don't want for the sake of Hashem, that there should be any chilul Hashem. In other words, you've always been with me. You've always seen my righteousness before. I'm not doing this for my kavod. This is for you. That's why he puts the emphasis of tzidki over here. This is for the tzedek, for the sake of tzedek, of justice, of righteousness. But Sar irhaftali, when I was in a strait, in a narrow place, when I was in trouble, irhaftali, you made it comfortable for me. Irhafta means to make it wider, to make it broad, to make it comfortable. In other words, even though I was in a narrow strait, even though I was in trouble, whenever it was that I was in a tsar, some sort of trouble, irhaftali, you've made it more comfortable for me. That's a very interesting point, that even though somebody may be going through some difficulty in life, and that is a tsar, and things are narrow, right? Things are difficult. Nevertheless, they could be a lot worse. So irhaftali, you've made it somewhat tolerable. You've made it comfortable. I recognize that. But the batzar in the past, irhaftali, you made it somewhat comfortable. It could have been a lot worse. You made it easier for me. Why say that? Well, if anybody ever finds himself in such a situation, he should know that if you look at the tzara that you're in, you can see the chesed in there. That's a very incredible point to say. You could see chesed in the tzara. Yeah, sometimes if you analyze it, and most people don't do that. They don't take the time to analyze. Okay, let me take this tzara apart. They're just unhappy. They're upset. They're angry, right? And they're just not calm about it. And I don't blame them. We're not going to blame anyone here, of course, because we don't know what we would do if we were in their shoes. We don't want to go through any difficulties in life. There are some very painful and challenging situations. Nonetheless, David HaMelech is teaching us here. This is a lesson. In the past, Batzar irhaftali, in other words, I was able to see how even though it was a tsar, irhaftali, you made it comfortable. You made it easier for me. So you can see the chesed. If you look at the tzara, you can see the chesed. Therefore I ask, Honeni ushma tefilati. I plead, Honeni means that please have pity on me, show me your grace, be gracious with me. That's the word Honeni. And Shmat, and accept my prayer. Why Honeni? Just Shmat Filatin. We don't have extra words here, even though this is not the Torah from Hashem directly. This is David HaMelech. Nevertheless, he's not just throwing words. Words are not cheap here. The words are chosen because it's Ruach HaKodesh. So why is he saying Honeni? Please be gracious with me. When somebody is in a deep trouble, in a big tzara, in a dangerous situation, he needs a miracle. If they perform the miracle for him, they may subtract from his zechuyot upstairs b'shamayim. We have to do a miracle for you. It's going to cost you. It's cost. We don't do miracles for free for just anyone. Since you don't really deserve the miracle, but you have merits in your account, we're going to debit your account from the merits that you have, because we had to make a miracle. To deserve a miracle, you had to. It costs. So he doesn't want that. He's not asking for a miracle where they deduct his credit. Honeni, therefore, Honeni is please be gracious, and do it not because, I want you to make a miracle and subtract my credit, but just do me a chesed, do a hanina, as we call it in Hebrew. Betor hanina, be gracious with me. And this hanina is sometimes the only way out of midat adin. Midat adin is the attribute of justice. It's strict. And the king says, listen, for what you did, 25 years in jail. Wow, that's a life sentence. But the king can also say, you know what? After 10 years, you get out for good behavior. And what is this called in this country? The president gives his pardon. He can pardon a criminal, even though he's meant to spend the rest of his life in jail, perhaps. The president has that authority. And of course, supposedly they weigh it. Does he really deserve it or not? To give it to him, and so forth. But that's possible. That's a hanina. Certain leaders can grant a hanina, a pardon of sorts. David HaMelech says, give me that kind of a pardon. Even though the midat adin is strict, midat adin is very strict, and would not allow for it, Honeni, therefore, I ask that you be gracious with me. Betor hanina. What this really teaches us is that even though one is be'ed tzara, he's in a difficult predicament, midat adin is very, very strict. We still have a way out of it, and how is that? Through prayer. Never give up on prayer. The doctors say, this man has 1 week to live. So we just give up? No, we can still pray. Now, obviously, if the guy is in real bad shape, you don't want him to live in bad shape. Right? You don't want him to stay a vegetable. You don't want him to continue the way he is and live. We're talking about somebody that can actually come out of a situation and live a normal life. Otherwise, what are you praying for? We're praying for somebody to get out of his problem, to make a complete recovery, if possible. So, even if we're in a difficult situation, never give up on prayer. Therefore, Honeni ushma tefilati. David HaMelech continues on to talk a little bit about his enemies, trying to understand the motives of why people aggravate you, why they hurt you, why they're after you. Why are they doing it to me? And as he's complaining, he's sharing with us, so we should know for the future the bottom line of what the majority of conflicts, disagreements have in common. And we're going to see that. Very important points. B'nai Ish. First of all, he addresses his enemies as gentlemen. He says, B'nai Ish. Gentlemen. That's what B'nai Ish means. You are human beings. You're not animals, right? Even though they're behaving like animals. He says, but you are B'nai Ish. That means he's addressing his enemies bekavod. It means that he's trying to use conciliatory mannerisms, right? He's trying to say, let's make peace. We don't need to fight about this. We don't need to argue about this. But you are B'nai Ish. So you see, his approach is not, I'm going to teach him a lesson. Right? There's some people that talk like that. I'm going to give it to them. They're going to learn once and for all. No. This is B'nai Ish. You are human beings. You are the children of Adam. B'nai Ish. You can begin to curse them. You can use all kinds of insults. And in Farsi, you have many such curses, right? Yeah? There are various languages that are very rich in language of how to demean someone, call him names, and look at you, right? He doesn't use that kind of language. He's proper, he's clean. B'nai Ish. And what does he tell them? Admeh chevodi lichlima. Until when are you going to embarrass me? Until when are you going to denigrate my kavod? You know what you're doing when you're embarrassing me? When people embarrass others in an argument, in some fight, this in itself shows that the whole argument is based on lies. You don't have to embarrass someone if you think you're right. Why embarrass it? What's the purpose of that? What are you going to gain from it? So he's telling us if there is embarrassment involved, lashon hara, embarrassing someone, putting him down, you know what this is all about? This is about rik and kazab, as he's going to say it towards the end of the pasuk. It's about empty vanities and lies. It's all vain. Shtuyot, as we say in Hebrew, nonsense. How did they embarrass him? Anybody know? How did they embarrass David HaMelech? What did they say about him? They used to call him many times Ben Yishai. They didn't say David. They said Ben Yishai, the son of Yishai. And David HaMelech says, wait a minute, don't I have a name? Why are you calling me Ben Yishai? And I have some news to tell you. You've heard of the last name Friedman? Mm-hmm. It's a pretty common name, right? It is very not nice to call somebody by his last name. His name is Moshe. His name is David. His name is Yudah. Why don't you call him? And I've heard this so many times, and I've told the kids, why are you calling him by his last name? Hey, Friedman, come here. Well, what happened to his first name? His real identity is his first name, not his family name. My son in the army told me that, he says, Abba, sometimes in the army you have 12 Friedmans. I'm sorry, 12 Moshes. I'm sorry. You have 12 Moshe or 12 David. So you have to somehow, so you say Friedman. All right, that's a technicality. Still, I've seen too many times where people get just used to calling somebody by their last name. And you know what this shows? Don't think this is just plain a coincidence. It shows nituk instead of chibur. It shows that you don't really want to be his friend. You call him by his last name and not by his first name. And this has been proven psychologically too. When you are close to someone, he means something to you, you call him by his first name. He's dear to you. He's dear to you, call him by his first name because the first name is what he is. David, Moshe,
Some cultures.
Yehuda. No. It has nothing to do with culture. First name is the essence of the individual.
That's true, but in Persian culture,
Yes.
they have a hard time calling a person without the first name. They have to call him the last name.
Well,
Mr. or Mrs.
at least they should say Ara.
Yes,
Yeah.
they have the hard time because
Yeah.
they respect for the person.
Yeah. Well, obviously, in Brazil too, where I come from, there is different titles depending on the age you're speaking to. Right? There's the regular level. There is higher level. Even your parents are on a higher level than you address them differently. In Brazil, we address our parents in a different way. It would be equivalent to English madam. You would call that equivalent to the English word madam to your mother. You wouldn't just say, oh, you can say mother too, but that's when you call her. when you say, can I do this for you, or what would you like, you put that title in your request. What would madam want? What is, your father, what do you, sir, want or request of me? You add that title. And if it's a higher person than the parents, there's even another way of saying it, like saying to a king, Your Excellency. So in Portuguese, there are different titles. Even in Spanish, there's somewhat of a different way of addressing an older person and a younger person. But in Portuguese, in Brazil, especially in Portuguese, it's much more elevated in the levels than in Spanish. So like you were saying, it's true to an extent in different cultures you may have different ways of addressing people, right? Yeah, that's true. Nonetheless, when they are on your same level as you are, friends, you call them in the first name. See, that's what I mean. You're not going to call your father that's in his first name because that's disrespectful. And by the way, that's why Ashkenazim don't give their children the father's name like the Sephardim do. There's a difference in mentality. The Ashkenazi says, what? I'm going to call my son what I call my father's name? That's insulting to my father. It's like I'm calling him in his first name. That's the way the Ashkenazi sees it. And therefore, they don't give, as long as the father is alive, the grandfather, they don't give their grandchildren the name of the grandfather. By Sephardi? What? My grandfather? That's the biggest honor that I can give my grandfather, is to give my son his name. You see how they look at this whole idea differently? So that's culture. That's also differences in culture, different ways of looking at it. But nonetheless, this is a very true point. If you don't call your friend by his first name, friend that is on your level, he's not somehow above you, your teacher or something, where you want to be a little bit more distant or respectful, right? If you don't call him by his first name, something is missing there. That means you don't want to connect with him. And that is what they used to do with David. Ben Yishai. Why not call him David? If they would say David, David. David, you see how it feels different. Ben Yishai, Friedman. You see? It's so true if you think about it, yes.
So Shaul was in his right to call David Ben Yishai. It wasn't that he was putting him down. He was the king, he was able to say...
No, it's still disrespectful.
Still disrespectful.
Sure, you don't call somebody by the son of the son of this guy. He has a name.
But he switched. Sometimes
David to Shaul. David, it would not be right for David to call Shaul. Yes, you're right. He would occasionally, but at times this is what you heard. Ben Yishai, which is disrespectful.
Even if
yes.
Shaul HaMelech.
Yes. Now, if David would call Shaul, he would say, Kvod HaMelech, your honor, your excellency. That's different. From David to Shaul, you can call him, give him a title. But he would not call Shaul his father's name, Ben this guy. That would be, wow, even to a king, that would be even worse. But even to your servant, you don't want to call him that. Son of Joe, or son of Mary, or son of James, or last name, which is basically something new, by the way. Right? Because many last names today in Farsi are Zadeh, right? Because it's son of this person, son of this, son of that, son of this. Because they started giving a last name. In many countries, they started this recently, in the past 200 years or so, depending on which country. Before that, they didn't have. There would be Yaakov ben Shimon. There was no last name. So if somebody was disrespectful, he could have said something like Ben Shimon. Or Ben, I don't know, Ben the mother's name. That's disrespect. He didn't want to call him in his first name. Some people don't even use a name. Hey. Hey, you. Why don't use a name? Because it's too close. When you use a first name, it's closeness. So that's part of the embarrassment that he's talking about over here. Till when are you going to embarrass me? Embarrassing me means that you have really nothing to show. That all your arguments are just rik and kazav, as he finishes up over here. All you care about and all you like are rik. empty things, vain things, worthless things. That's called rik. Tevakshu chazav sela. Sela means forever. All you're asking for are lies. So what is David HaMelech telling us here? That the vast majority or a preponderance of arguments and fights is all politics. Politics. And what's politics? Lies, interests, agendas, right? Conspiracies, intrigues. Nothing to do with the truth. Nothing to do with the emet. Nothing to do with what's good and right for the people, for the country. No. Look at every country you want. Look at their parliament, and you can see it. You can see it. It's all over. And there are some parliaments where even they hit each other. Have you seen that? They punch each other in the face. They throw things at each other. It's incredible.
They throw the shoes and they beat each other with the shoes.
All kinds of European parliaments, and they're wearing ties and jackets, right? They don't have feathers in the head. This is not Indians. This is supposed to be people who went to college, and they're fighting, and they're embarrassing and insulting each other, using bad language sometimes. What's this? It's rik and kazav, he says, because most of these arguments are politics, and that's kazav. It's hypocrisy. It's lies. It's not truth. Today, in Israel politics, they're saying that let there be equality, shivyon banetel, for people to be drafted in the army, that the secular and the religious should all be equal in assuming the burden of responsibility. Now, that's a very, very nice thing to say. But the way it has been presented, what came before it, the entire introduction to that, was very, very vicious. A vicious attack against the religious on how they're bloodsuckers, how they just try to take what's yours and you work so hard for it and they don't do anything. They gave a whole background in order to sell this shivyon banetel. It's all based on hatred. Had there been no hatred underlying this argument, it would have been presented differently. So you can tell by how things are presented whether it's a real legitimate cause or not, or it's politically motivated. So this is another example of political motivated agenda. You really, really, really want to be fair to everyone? Sit down and have an amicable discussion. Don't start criticizing and using bad names and metaphors to put down any segment of society just because you think that that's what they're doing. Be careful with that. Don't put down anyone. There's no need for that. If you have a real good cause, if you really think you have a good point, present it, talk about it, and see if try to find a compromise. So far, what do we see? All of this persecuting him, going after David HaMelech by his enemies is all rik and kazav. You don't really have an argument. It's not true what you're saying. Another reason why it's not true, he continues on, is ud'u ki yifla Adonai hasid lo. Don't you remember? Hashem chose me through Shemuel. If you read Sefer Shemuel, Shemuel Aleph, you see there the whole story of how David as a young man was chosen by Shemuel, a Navi. This is a young man. He's becoming king because Hashem wants him to become king. Don't you realize that? What are you jealous of? Why do you hate him? Why do you go after him? Don't you know? Kifla. Kifla means to separate, to designate. Hashem basically chose him. And who did he choose? A Hasid. And he chose a good, righteous man. Why is he saying that about himself? He says, but wait a minute. Don't you want the best righteous king? Don't you want the best president? Don't you want your leader to be a Hasid, a righteous man? So why send somebody who's not like that against me? In other words, why back someone who's not a Hasid, who's not behaving, not acting like a Hasid? Hifla Hashem. Hashem has chosen not just an ordinary man. I'm not a slave, a wild man. I'm not one of those. Hifla Hashem. Who did Hashem choose? A Hasid, a good man, a righteous man. And he's proven that he is that. So don't you want the best man, the most qualified man for the job? No. We want a Democrat, or we want a Republican, or we want a liberal, or we want... Don't you want the most qualified? Forget the party. Baruch Hashem, there are people in this country who don't vote with their party, who vote who they think is the most qualified individual for the job. Democrats going to say, no, I'm a Democrat. I'm going to vote for this guy. He's a Democrat, I'm a Democrat. But you know yourself, don't you know that he's not the most qualified? Yeah, but I'm a Democrat. You don't want the most qualified person for the job? See what the problem is? Now, you can't blame some of the people because they don't really know who's more qualified, because they're not qualified to choose or to judge. They look at the ballot, okay, this law, is it good or not? They're not educated enough to know. That's a big problem. How are they going to choose? You have a jury in this country that is supposed to decide if the guy is guilty or not. Sometimes that's not so simple. If the people themselves are not educated enough. I mean, you hope that justice comes out of a random combination of people. You hope. Why do we hope? Because the Torah does say, Kemishpat Elokimu. In the end, it depends on Hashem. That's true. You know, Hashem can put it into their minds. But logically, it doesn't make sense to just choose people who are not qualified to make that decision. It just happens to be that sometimes the less qualified people make better decisions than those who are qualified, because the qualified people are corrupt. You know, if the judge is corrupt, if the people are corrupt, the lawyer, the prosecutor is corrupt, then obviously it could be that the only ones who are not corrupt are the simple, uneducated, no college degree jurists. That could happen too. But generally speaking, you want a person with a sound mind making the decision, not just anybody. So that's what David HaMelech is saying. Hashem has chosen a Chasid lo. ודעו כי יפלא אדוני חסיד לו, אדוני ישמע בקוראי אליו, and Hashem will listen to me, therefore, since I'm a Hasid, in the same way that He's listened to me in the past. In other words, don't you remember that Hashem listened to me when I went against Goliath? He was a young boy then. And he prayed to Hashem that Hashem should vanquish, you know, the Jews, and bring justice to the Jewish people through this encounter with Goliath. Right? That the kavod of Am Yisrael should be restored, that the Goyim should see that Hashem is on our side. So David HaMelech prayed a small, brief prayer before he went. So Hashem listened to me. Hashem yishma bekori elav, in the way He did in the past, He will do now too. Whether it was with the lion or with the bear or with Goliath, Hashem has listened to him in the past, and Hashem will listen to me now too. Now we've come to the second half of the Perek, which is also very fascinating. Now he turns to his enemies and tells them, you know, I have a solution for you. Which is very interesting. He actually offers them a solution on how not to be his enemy. No, he told us what it's all about. Now he says, you know how you can avoid this problem and not be my enemy? Forget about that I'm a Hasid and all that. We know that. But you don't know that. You know why you don't know that? Because you have a problem. You don't fear God. Rigzu ve'al techetau. Show fear. Show, rigzu is more than fear, it's tremble. Harada. Show, tremble before God. Rigzu, tremble before God. It's much more than fear. Tremble before God. This way you won't sin. You won't make any mistakes in life if you really had fear for God and you really considered the situation properly. You would be afraid to sin. Rigzu, if a person really is a rogez, the word rogez is a little bit misleading because sometimes rogez means anger. Here the root of the word is different. It means to tremble or to fear. Rigzu, if you would have the proper fear for God, you would not sin. Why? Because you would be afraid that if you harm anyone, one of these days it will come back to haunt you. You know, as they say in Hebrew, sof ganav letliyah, in the end the thief is hanged. The thief is caught. crime doesn't pay. There are various sayings for the same idea. In the end, haven't you learned from others who have done what you're doing? And in the end, it came back to haunt them. It came back to hurt them, what they've done to others. So therefore, rigzu, consider that, think about that. And then you will not sin. Imru bilvavchem al mishkavchem v'domu sela. When you have some quiet time, I'm adding the word quiet time here because that's the context. When you're by yourself, you're quiet, you're not in the field, you're not at work. Imru bilvavchem, think to yourself. That's what bilvavchem means. Contemplate and reflect, ponder. Because think in your heart, meaning think about it. When you have time, therefore, when you have a quiet moment, imru bilvavchem, think about these things, about what you've done, what you're doing. Al mishkavchem, when you're going to sleep, right? And then, I'm sure, v'domu sela, and you remain silent forever. You will stop barking, in other words. Domu is you'll shut up completely. It's not a bad word. It's not a strong word. It's just a very, very emphatic word of not just sheket, it's silence. Okay? Domu is to be silent. It's not just to act. It's not even to talk. It's a stronger word that implies cessation of action, or including words, especially words. So if you think about what you're doing, take a moment and think and ponder, reflect about what you're doing, and of course in combination with the rigzu, that you are fearful for God, think about the fear of God, then v'domu sela, you won't act the way you're acting. That people don't do this. If you think about it, you have fear for God, you won't wrong anyone. You'll be afraid. There's an interesting Yonatan ben Uziel translation to this pasuk. Yonatan ben Uziel takes a slightly different approach, and he says, Imru bilvavchem, he's talking about, David HaMelech is telling them the last possible solution to someone who sees that he can't give up a bad habit with a yetzer hara, with his evil inclination. Whether it's anger management problem, whether he's a killer, or God forbid, anything might be. Yonatan ben Uziel brings as the final possible solution, pray to Hashem. Hashem should help you control yourself. If you can't control yourself, you have an anger problem, pray. So Yonatan says, Imru al mishkavchem, or Imru bilvavchem, the heart, speak to God. That He should save you, spare you from making mistakes and from committing sins. And this Yonatan ben Uziel follows really the Gemara's idea of when somebody sees that he cannot avoid the yetzer hara and is having a hard time and he's making many mistakes and falling, he's tempted and he's just can't take it. Learn Torah. Torah should cool you off. If it doesn't, say Kriyat Shema. Right? If Kriyat Shema doesn't help you, Taskir lo et Yom HaMitah. The last thing that Gemara mentions is think about dying. Think about the day of death. Think about when they will bury you 6 feet under the ground, when they will cover you in shrouds, when they will light a candle for you. Think about that. That will depress you, and hopefully that will cool you off from the yetzer hara. So the Gemara tries, of course, to give us the only possible solutions to avoid the yetzer hara. Hopefully one of those will help. So that's what Yonatan ben Uziel is saying. David is telling him, think about it. It doesn't help. Pray to Hashem that He should save you from making a mistake. Don't you want to make the right choice? Don't you want to make the right decision in life? Sometimes we make mistakes. So therefore pray to Hashem that we should not make a mistake. Pray to Hashem that He should help you with the yetzer hara. Domu sela, according to that idea of Yonatan ben Uziel, is remember the grave, where everything is dom, where everything is quiet, where you can't act. Think about that, therefore. And that's what the rabbis always remind us is, in order to defeat the Yetzer Hara, you always have to be on the offensive. Lo'olam yargiz adam yetzer tov al Yetzer Hara. Always go on the offensive. Don't be on the defensive. If the Yetzer Hara comes at you and you're defending yourself, it's going to be very difficult. Therefore, don't put yourself in that kind of a situation to begin with. And then you have to say, okay, I'm going to resist all the temptations and pressures. Don't put yourself in front of that cake if you're on a diet. Otherwise, you're going to say, well, can I cheat today? I'll start my diet tomorrow. Don't take a chance. Don't put yourself in front of that cake. It can happen to any one of us. We're in a diet, somewhat strict, and somebody brings home some good chocolate chip Danishes. And you look at it and you say, well, even some of the diet books say you're allowed to cheat once a week. It's okay. It's true. Once in a while, but cheat on Shabbat. In Shabbat, you want better food. You know, you have to be careful. Don't put yourself in that situation. Try to avoid that. So the rabbis tell us always be on the offensive, not on the defensive. Because if something comes at you already, you're going to say, well, I'm not going to do anything. Nah. You're not so strong. If you're in the defensive, it's very hard. Always be on the offensive. What does it mean to be on the offensive? Give the Yetzer Hara Tov, the positive, give him more koach, give him more power. If you give the Yetzer Hara Tov more power, that means you stay away from trouble. That means you're only doing the positive things. Doing positive things will avoid negative thoughts, negative actions. That's what it means to give the Yetzer Hara Tov the incentive, or always be on the offensive, meaning to always be involved in doing the right thing. Then you're not on the defensive. If a person doesn't do too many offensive good things, he doesn't pray the minyan, he doesn't do too much tzedakah, he doesn't learn too much Torah, he's not being on the offensive, then when he's presented with a challenge, he says, well, maybe just one time. It's difficult to defend yourself from the Yetzer Hara. Don't give yourself that, don't put yourself in that situation. Be on the offensive, meaning what? Do the right thing all the time, and that way you're not defending yourself. You're defeating the Yetzer Hara all the time. You're giving more power to the Yetzer Hara Tov. Rabbis learned from this that one should say Kriyat Shema al Amita before he goes to sleep. What should we say with our heart? What should we say al Mishkafchem when we go to sleep, when we rest? We should say Kriyat Shema. Kriyat Shema is a powerful prayer to save us or protect us from the mazikim, from the various demonic beings that exist out there in the world that can hurt people. And especially at night when they rule, when they have some control. Unfortunately, there's all kinds of them, and they're all around. They're not as much around in urban places as they are in rural places, but they're still around, and you have to be careful. You have to not really do certain things that will call their attention to you. So Kriyat Shema Lamita, especially the long version of Kriyat Shema, is a good prayer that the dreams should be clean, because there is a kind of demon that invades the dream. And many of us don't even realize that, but we may have had those kind of dreams as well. Yeah, they invade the dream and they appear in all kinds of ways, and the dreams are no good. I'm not going to get into too much details of this right now. But Kriyat Shema Lamita, mezuzah on the door of the room where you sleep, the kosher mezuzah, and of course not having watched a bad program on TV or the internet. So it was having a clean mind. All that together with Kriyat Shema, hopefully, will save one from all kinds of nightmares. He continues on with his help, giving help to his enemy. That's interesting. Bring sacrifices that are true and correct, that are of tzedek, that are just. What's zivchet tzedek? One idea behind the word zivchet tzedek is sincere korbanot for the real reasons. In other words, a lot of times the Jews during the time that there was korbanot, they would bring korbanot. You know, Hashem forgives, I'll bring a sacrifice, I'll get it over with, it's okay. No, he says, I'm trying to tell you how to be better people. So I spoke to you about Yirat Shamayim. I spoke to you about reflection, right? Cheshbon HaNefesh, thinking about your deeds. Now I'm telling you something else that is important. Be honest people. Be sincere. Men of integrity. when you bring a korban, do it for the real reason. And what's the real reason? Because I want to do teshuvah. I want to repent. I want to get close to Hashem. Zivchu zivchet tzedek. For the real cause, for the real reasons, bring the korbanot. And bitchu el Adonai. And trust in Hashem. When you are doing what you're doing, embarrassing me, going after me, trying to hurt me, it shows from all your bad and evil thoughts that your emunah is weak and that you lack bitachon. When a person wants to hurt someone, oh, he cheated me, I'm going to cheat him, and I'm going to do it even better than him. People act like that and react like that. What does it show? They have no emunah and bitachon. They don't understand that what happened to them is a test. What happened to them is a kapara, a tikkun, a challenge, whatever you want to say. Why stoop to his level? That's what he wants you to do, to be like him. That's what you want to do? Take it easy. So he says that's what's missing with you. You guys may be very learned, very knowledgeable, yeah, but you don't have bitachon in Hashem. If you had bitachon, you had yirah of Hashem, you wouldn't act the way you are acting. So bring the zevach tzedek, on which Yonatan ben Uziel says here also that when a person conquers his yetzer hara, that is like a sacrifice. That is a zevach tzedek, a real sacrifice when he holds himself back, controls himself. That is admirable. That is called a zevach tzedek. But all your plans and all your plots, they all come from a lack of emunah. That's what it happens in life. People who do things like that, people who act the way they do in the wrong way, it's because they don't have the proper bitachon, proper trust in Hashem. Okay, just to finish up the last few pesukim. Rabim omrim mi yar'eni tov nesa alenu or panecha Adonai. Many people look at life, they look at the wicked people, they look at the non-Jewish world, the successful non-Jewish world, and they say, wow, Rabim omrim, mi yar'eni tov. I wish Hashem one day show me all this good and all this bountiful blessing that they all have, all this prosperity. A lot of people talk like that, or say that, or wish for that. Rabim omrim mi yar'eni tov. Who will one day show me all that blessing and all that prosperity? And it's interesting that he's saying this right after the fact that he said bitchul Hashem. In other words, people are obviously saying that because they don't have bitachon. But Rabim omrim mi yar'eni tov. That's all they dream about. All they think about is money and prosperity. Look at all of them. One day I want to have that. I want to have this. I want to have a house. I want to have a car. Right? What they should be asking for is Nesa alenu or panecha Hashem. That Hashem should bestow upon us or put upon us. Nesa means to grow on us. Right? His light. In other words, to elevate upon us, to place high above us His light. Why His light? Because once we have His light, obviously, that's the most important thing. We have His blessing, we have His closeness, we have His love for us. That's more important than all the riches in the world. And by the way, you know why you're complaining and you're thinking about all the riches? Because you don't have the light of Hashem in your life. So that's the second understanding of the word or panecha. Put on us your light. Oh, once you have the light of Hashem, you'll understand that this is all shtuyot, this is all vanities, this is all nothing. So therefore, if you don't want to complain, if you want to understand life a little bit better, ask for the light of Hashem to be upon you. That's more important than anything else. If people had the light of Hashem, they would see how good life is to them. If they complain, it's because they don't have that light. They don't see therefore the good that they have. So this is what one should aspire for, not the riches of the world. That relationship with Hashem, that's the most beautiful thing of all. David HaMelech says now he goes back to himself and he says, Hashem, he says, Natata simcha belibi, you've given me happiness. Happiness? He's been going through a lot of hardship. No, but here, this is a very valuable lesson. He's about to tell us, you know why I'm happy? Dafka me'et deganan v'tirosham rabu. As a result of, because of the plenitude of crop, grain, and wine that they have. In other words, we talked about riches. Because of their riches, I'm happy. Why are you happy because of their riches? Because the rabbis tell us one of the most valuable lessons that a Jew could ever learn when seeing prosperity by others. If this is how Hashem rewards the sinners, could you imagine how much He's going to reward those who did follow His word? Instead of looking at it negatively, oh, how come them and not me? They don't deserve it. No. If they got this, the more so I will get, not now, sometime later. What is this compared to? A mashal, a nice mashal I saw. A worker, very devoted worker, has been working very hard, and his employer does not pay him yet, does not compensate him, does not even show him any affection. One day that employer hired a one-day worker, just for the day. Wow, how he treated him. He took care of him, paid for everything, expenses, gave him gifts, good salary. Now the other worker says, now I know. If that is how he can treat a worker that he just took for one day, look how much he went out of his way for that one-day worker, now I know I have nothing to worry about. He for sure will take care of me much more than he took care of me. You follow? That's what David HaMelech says. If I'm happy, no, on the contrary, I'm happy once I see their wealth and prosperity. That brings me happiness. But why, by the way, is Hashem so kind to them? So the rabbis tell us because Hashem rewards the Rasha for the little bit of chesed, the little bit of kindness that he did in his lifetime, this world, because he's not going to give them the world to come. So he pays them off here. So people who know that would be less complaining. People who understand that, who learn these things. Last pasuk, B'shalom yachda v'shkeva v'yishan ki eta Adonai levadad lavetach toshiveni. David HaMelech says that, even though unfortunately I have to fight, even though I had to unfortunately run away, even though I have to struggle with all kinds of enemies, nonetheless I have nothing against them. In reality, what I want is peace, and I pray for that. I don't pray to defeat them. I don't pray for their downfall. I don't pray for them to lose and for me to win. No. I would rather b'shalom. B'shalom yahdav eshkeva. I would love it to be able to go to rest, to sleep, knowing that we're all in peace and harmony. That would be my greatest wish of all. There are some commentators who even say that he's insinuating that before you go to sleep, you should even forgive anyone who may have harmed you during the day. Not to go to sleep holding a grudge against anyone, not having that hatred against anyone. I forgive them. V'shalom yachda v'shkeva. That is ultimately the greatest blessing of all, is that there is peace. V'yishan. In this way, if I know that we're in peace, I will be able to rest. Only then will we be able to rest, if there's true shalom amongst us. Ki eta Adonai levadad lavetach toshiveni. The word levadad means only you, God, by yourself, could place me, or can secure me, place me in security. Only you can do it. Nobody else can do that. According to this interpretation, levadad is referring to Hashem. Only Hashem can bring shalom. Hashem oz la'amo yitin Hashem yavarech et amo v'shalom, and we ask for it in Birkat Kohanim, right? V'yasem lecha shalom. Only Hashem can bring ultimate peace. Even though peace is something that people have to do amongst themselves, of course, in the end, if they don't, and we want it, what are we going to do? We have to pray that Hashem should help us reach the shalom. So today in Israel, or in Washington, D.C., what they're trying to do, this magical peace, is never going to work. No. Because Hashem is the one that will produce shalom. If Hashem does not produce shalom, no matter what you try, it won't work. You'll have what's happening in Syria and in Egypt, a lack of shalom. People can't understand what's going on. But that's what it is. The other idea of levadad is that even though we may not be shalom, there may not be togetherness, So Ata Hashem levadat, for me, on my own, take care of me. But I think that the idea that makes a little bit more sense over here is that David HaMelech is talking about the ultimate goal and the ultimate benefit for Am Yisrael is for everyone to be together. And for that to happen, of course, Ki Ata Hashem levadat. Only you can do it. And therefore David HaMelech prays, Lavetach toshiveni, you're the only one that I can rely on that will bring the security. We try to do our best what we can. We have to try to be nice. We have to try everything possible to bring about shalom. But in the end, security and shalom will come only from Hashem. Thank you.
Rabbi, what's the Gemara on this one?
One second, actually. Yeah, the segula for this perek, I actually did not write it down. I did not write it down, Tom, but let me see if I can find it over here. Let me see. Yeah, I'll just read it to you. It's a little bit long. I don't have the abridged portion of this, but it says like this: if you pray this particular prayer, so thank you for reminding me, by the way. If you pray this prayer every morning, then go ahead and do whatever you need to do and you will succeed. So this is a good prayer for general success, especially to say it 3 times, it says here, before sunrise. And there's another little prayer that accompanies this that you could say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should accompany me and make all my endeavors and efforts successful, that that all my wishes should come true, and that whatever I need to do today should go well. If you need to ask somebody something very important that you're not sure he's going to grant it to you, say this perek. You have to ask something from the government, say this 7 times. I guess from the government you need to say it 7 times. So apparently this parak has to do with success in general. B'ezrat Hashem, we should all be successful.
Amen.
And say this, I guess, if you really have something very important. I guess this is one of those chapters that can help. Okay.
Saka Baruch.